So I usually don't sit in a dark room talking about eternal hell. It's a little creepy, but it just happens to be pretty dark in here today. So I got my little candle next to me. So lately I've been thinking a lot about eternal hell. And I mean, I've written on this many times. I've had people on my channel. I posted about it a lot on Instagram. It's a huge problem, huge problem. And a lot of Christians really tend to overlook this. And that's a problem. So I think that this notion of eternal hell is infinitely more problematic than, say, the finite problem of earthly suffering, which would be advanced as probably the strongest objection toward the existence of a loving God, a God we ascribe the properties of love, care, concern for his rational creation. But if eternal hell is true, then it's infinitely worse than any kind of finite suffering that we experience here. Because think about it, if this is the only life that we have, after we die, it's over. All the suffering is ended and we disappear into nothingness. Or we are all saved and we inherit eternal bliss with God, and we participate in intellectual virtue and beauty and goodness and continually refine our characters. It's just an amazing place to be. Um, in both circumstances, the problem of evil is over. It's done. It's finite. But if eternal hell is true, it's a completely different state of affairs. Um, so either persons are consciously aware that they're suffering forever. That means there's no amelioration behind it. There's no moral correction. Nothing seeks to correct the person in need of correction. They are just suffering eons and eons of torment for finite earthly crimes. That seems pretty heinous, and that is the worst thing a soul could ever endure, right? Eons of perpetual torment. Now, the other side of things that could happen is that souls are unconscious, and that would entail that they're annihilated. They're just wiped out of existence. God, for whatever reason, is supposedly very loving, but he wipes people out of existence, or they wipe themselves out of existence. But that's problematic. We can talk about that in another video. But the problem here is that both of these things are eternal states of misery, because in the one respect, the conscious person is forced to endure this misery forever, and God doesn't intend to correct them at all. It's just eternal punishment, punishment for the sake of punishment. Now, the other side of things is what happens about this individual's loved ones who happen to be saved. They were lucky enough to be granted heaven and eternal bliss, but their loved ones are suffering forever or annihilated. They too would inherit this kind of eternal misery, knowing that they're separated from their loved ones and their loved ones cannot participate in joy and goodness in the kingdom of God. Now, some people have proposed, well, don't worry about that because God's actually going to um, annihilate or he's going to wipe their memories of their loved ones. So they won't even remember them anymore. Now, as you can see, this starts to turn into a really psychopathic version of God. This sounds like a character out of a video game series, or a horror movie series. So it gets pretty desperate, and the mental gymnastics start to really become, quite prevalent. But in all, I think when you really assess this, that eternal hell is far worse than the problem of evil. And if true, rational minds should reject Christianity. No one should actually try to rationalize this and moralize this upon their minds. We all know it's wrong. People just skate around it to try to, make it look good because it's God. Somehow he's, exonerated from this. But yeah, it's something to think about. And really, if you're a Christian who believes in the doctrine of eternal hell, think about it. Really assess your moral compass and assess your theology, because this is a big problem, perhaps the biggest problem for Christianity and any type of religion that asserts that God is love, perfect love and goodness. So.